Hi.
Yeah.
Amazing, extraordinary cast of Nightmare Alley. I feel privileged to be with you all, mostly just to thank you for your incredible art and this movie. But I'm so particularly moved by Guillermo's vision and gift and offering in this film that you all created together, that feels like the most remarkable waking dream of this man's descent into the shadow. It feels fiercely political. It feels it brings up such deep moral questions that I keep reliving this journey and am very haunted by it. And none of this could be done without every single one of you that drives this journey so remarkably. And I'll start with you, Bradley, just to I have so many questions for each of you, so it's going to be really hard, so bear with me. But my first question, and obviously you as a producer of the film as well, I know you and Guillermo worked so closely together in kind of shaping this journey. But in thinking about Stan, and I've shared this with you, I'm so mesmerized by this long sustain toward fighting one's shadow. So it's not just a man in his shadow. It's almost like this journey exists where it's inevitable that he's going to get there, but these different, guides and muses and manipulators take him left and right on this journey. And I just wonder if first you could talk about you and Guillermo's first steps toward what is this and how do I find that descent? Who is Stan for me? What was that like for you guys and for you?
Well, first of all, Laura, it's great to see you. I just have to say, like, as you're talking, I zoned out because I got complicated.
Bradley, just talk about you and Guillermo.
But the reason there is a point to this. The reason that I think I got so zoned out is because I started to get nervous, and because I'm around, and this is like just the truth. Like I'm thinking like all these actors that are on this Zoom right now, like these incredible actors, and that is the reason I wanted to do the movie initially, and the fact that I got to play the guy who got to act with all of these people, along with Mark and a lot of other actors who aren't even on here, Paul Anderson, who played the geek too. And I think it was all, when you're around people that are so incredible, and I love this medium so much, that's a lot of energy. And when you have that much energy all the time, it's magic can happen if you've done enough prep work. And Guillermo and I had the luxury of a lot of prep on this movie, particularly because we pushed it like 6 months or whatever it was before we even started pre-pandemic. And then every day, all of these incredible people show up. And so Stan takes on all, it all just, you just hope for some sort of magical thing to occur between two actors in the set in this imaginary circumstance. And just seeing everybody, it's like, I remember there's so much that we shot and so many avenues that we explored in this movie. And, I think that's really because of the level of the cast and the level of commitment that everybody brought to it, that I got to sort of selfishly see, made probably more than anybody on the Zoom, because I was lucky enough to play the guy that walks through the whole movie.
Yeah. But, as this amazing group of actors knows from seeing the film and seeing what you do with the last couple of minutes of this movie, I will never forget those last 2 minutes. I mean, that's one of the most indelible experiences I've been through with a performance of an actor. And so this journey that you all take together leads to this exposing of a man to himself. And it's the craziest gift and haunting, you know, incomparably haunting. So I wonder, when you think about it, this journey that you've taken with everybody, is that something that you thought about getting to? I don't know in what order you shot the movie. Did you know where you?
That was like a month before we wrapped, I think. Always, you know, it's one of those scenes in the script where you think, oh, geez, Louise, like, I'm going to have to do this. It's that day's coming, you know, and I sort of dread it and I'm excited and terrified and I don't know if I'll ever get it. And then they'll probably fire me before I get there and all those things. And, but we did build a set that was movable in case we didn't get it, to take the pressure off and, you know, just like, so we could just keep doing the scene. And then we also thought of rewriting a whole other ending, which maybe, like, in retrospect was out of fear that I wouldn't even get there. But I do have to say, again, with the cast, and, you know, I don't think I've ever been so vulnerable on a movie as an actor, in many ways, just thinking about all the different people that I got to work with. And I don't think I would have been able to do that scene if I hadn't had those other scenes prior and those experiences. There are a lot of firsts for me in this movie as an actor, of things that I never would have, I was always terrified to do. And I don't think, I know I wouldn't have been able to do that last thing if I hadn't gone through those other things.
Well, it's incredible. And, you know, beautifully put, and a great introduction to all of these amazing humans that show you yourself. I mean, it's just, it's wild that it's this extraordinary ensemble, and it's also such an internal film at the same time. I don't know how the balance of that was made ultimately in the movie and through the edit process, because it's just extraordinary and you know, feels so intimate, and then obviously such a grand spectacle because of all of your performances. So I'll ask next, maybe Ron, I wanted to ask you, I mean, well, first, maybe you could share, which I didn't know and just learned, of course, we all know that you had worked with Guillermo before, that two of you had worked with him before, but you and Guillermo had done Hellboy. And I just learned that you had been the person to first give Guillermo the idea of making this, retelling this story and making this film. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, yeah, we were having one of our typical conversations about the state of cinema. I say that tongue in cheek a little bit, but we were specifically having a talk about remakes, and I was identifying remakes as part of the thing that was, Jesus, I feel like I'm about to become very pretentious by saying this, but anyway, I identified remakes as one of the things that was leading to the degradation of the great art form of cinema, you know, along with branding, along with just making movies about things that had already either appeared on television or stuff that had already been branded because the studios were afraid to do original stuff. So we had this conversation. I said, however, there is one exception that I would, you know, call attention to, and that is Nightmare Alley. I think that should be remade. And I was talking about remaking it with me, of course, as Stanton. But of course, I mean, that goes without saying. But curiously enough, Guillermo hadn't seen the film. And we were in Budapest, and we had this conversation. We got back to LA, we screened it at my house. And it was the first time he'd seen it. And it was, I forgot what your question was, Laura, but that was the sort of series of events.
Yeah, just origin.
The thing, what was in the back of my mind was that in 1947, when Tyrone Power read the book and became obsessed with making the film, and he was such a valuable commodity to 20th Century Fox at the time, they didn't want him to make this movie because it was too dark, and he had this beautiful image of this very patrician, handsome leading man. that they didn't want to mess with. And he said, I'll tell you what, I'll just tack 2 or 3 movies onto the back of my contract if you'll let me do this. So they gave him a few bucks, but they never gave him enough money, in my mind, to make a movie that was commensurate with the size of the idea. I mean, I feel like there's Greek mythology in this story because it involves hubris, it involves Sisyphus, someone flying too close to the sun, being burned and, you know, crashing and burning. It involved all these things. And then thinking about it while I was talking to Guillermo, I said, there's not a greater filmmaker in whose hands this material could be placed. And sure enough, you know, fate took a hand, and here we are.
Well, and I so appreciate that you would be the sort of patriarch of it coming to fruition by introducing him to it, and then sort of this, you know, father figure, if you will, to Molly, this protector of the story also, was very beautiful. I don't know if you want to speak to Bruno at all, and that relationship.
I thought that that was essential. Whatever place Bruno had in the telling of the story, what was essential was that he was Molly's, the one true, pure, innocent thing in this carnival world is Molly, and that it was essential that Bruno protect her. And then Guillermo came up with this beautiful backstory about how Bruno and her old man had been besties, and he was a real carny as well. And one of his deathbed wishes was take care of my kid. So Bruno spends his life doing that. But yeah, and those are the values that made it into the movie, gratefully.
Oh yeah, it's so beautiful. I mean, it just as you were speaking to it, Bradley, just each of you, you know, have these incredible lives that we see and feel like we know deeply in terms of, you know, backstory and who these characters are and where they've come from. So Toni, maybe we can talk about the amazing Xena and all you in the movie. And particularly, you know, as you are the first intimate, you know, into Stan and who he is as his muse. I mean, you really are the muse and the mentor in a way, and that dynamic is so, you know, radical, while you're also balancing a love story with your husband. So I would love to hear what that was like for you in creating this dynamic with Bradley's character, Stan.
I guess Xena, in a way, kind of exists in complete opposition to him, because she's soulful and aware and grounded and real and all about truth, despite, you know, some fakery in her onstage world. And he's someone who denies his truth, you know, is in so much pain that he can't face who he is. And in a way, she provides an opportunity for him to heal, which he denies, you know, and he just takes what he can and moves on and keeps doing that because it's easier than standing in his truth. It's hard work to do that, I think. But I mean, it's so easy to work with Bradley. You know, the scene, I think it became the bathtub scene is what we call it, was pretty much our first scene together. It was hugely intimidating. And Bradley is, you know, he was so lovely and so generous and present, and made me feel very comfortable. I think he was the one who was naked, so I think he felt comfortable as well. And it was.
But I mean, that's to you. I mean, that was the thing I was thinking of earlier about. I never would have been able to do that last scene if I've turned down like jobs because I was like, I don't know, I don't think I could do that, be naked, actually physically naked. And this one was like, I knew, like, him, you know, he's the pickled punk in the bathtub, has to happen, you know. And that was our first day together. And I mean,
Yeah.
like, it was
who schedules movies like that? It was
I know.
crazy. But I remember you saying, I've gotten to an age and I just don't give a shit. I'm just going to do it.
That's
And
true.
it was so admirable, it was just like, yeah, I mean, what else are we going to do? We just have to dive in and do it.
Yeah. But
There are so many textures in the scene, and we want different things. And it was ultimately, I think when I'm nervous of doing a scene, which I definitely was, it's always great to kind of have it behind you. So to start that way just made the whole shoot so easy and so much fun.
Well, and I'll bring amazing David into this too. Your story, and I'd love you both to speak to this, but what we learn and what we see on screen is just the beginning of what we feel from the two of you. And ultimately we, the audience, are on the same kind of journey along with your character, Bradley, with Stan, because we're getting to know this marriage and all that it has meant, and the deep love story and the brokenness that's in it. But how did the two of you create that with giving us so much that must have existed for years before we got there as an audience?
Well, Toni, do you want to go in on that, or?
Yeah, I'd love to hear from both of you.
You go first. Go for it.
Well, we had the privilege of spending a couple of days with Guillermo talking about their past, and it very little of it really remains in detail in the film. It sort of this loam that he laid down for us to sort of traverse, or at least inhabit in a really kind of a backdroppy way. And I thought he was so generous in sharing his vision of the two of us that I felt when we got to shoot it, you live with it, you think about it, you just sort of, it's always there in your mind. And then when we got there on the day, and I think that was my first day, was when we shot that scene when he wakes up and Stanton comes to our little house. It just felt like it was ready to go. And it felt kind of seamless, because whatever, digestion and stuff we'd all done on our own just kind of spilled out, and it just felt really real. It felt like a partnership, a long time relationship. And into it comes this young man who we have to turn our focus on. And so I don't know, it just felt just kind of graceful what Guillermo did by creating.
He really always surprises you with a deeper perspective on things. I think Guillermo, he has such an understanding of the richness and depth of the world, and it's true. It's such a big kind of film and cast and so many storylines, and he was very generous to give us that time together, and I think it really did contribute to something quite honest on the day when we were there. Guillermo always made me laugh with his direction, and always just had something new to think about, which made it deeper and better and more honest. And I mean, working with David and Bradley, there was one scene where I'm kind of the third wheel. I was watching them, and I was like in front row seat, just watching these two brilliant actors at each other. It was absolutely beautiful and inspiring, and I'll never forget that day. It was an amazing scene to shoot.
And I felt that way through most of the movie. I mean, I like, as I'm watching everybody on the screen, it's like, I remember Mary, like, when he's doing the thing with Mary, and I just thought, wait, this is like actually happening. And Richard breaking down in the garden, and then Willem, when Clem tells him what a geek is. I mean, that was like insane. And that was Willem's first day of shooting. And I just felt like, how am I even here watching these people do this stuff? It's pretty incredible.
It's so incredible. I love, David, that you use the word, speaking to the gracefulness, because you can feel the generosity toward every character. And as haunted and terrifying as some of the choices are that are made throughout this film, you are never in judgment of a single character in this movie. I don't even know how that is possible. There's a warmth in this nightmare. I mean, that's what's so radical. But David, I wanted to ask you also, you know, Pete is just, oh my God. I mean, we're all so in love with him, and the balance that, you know, you continue to always bring in your majestic performances, how you offered such brokenness and the trauma of addiction with the sweetest soul any of us could ever meet. Like it's just such a beautiful balance. So I don't know if you want to share anything about finding that balance in Pete for Stan's character and for the film.
Thank you, Laura. That's really generous of you, and it's weird to say that. But I want to go back to what you said about the kind of the grace of Guillermo, how his nuance and how he can put a warmth and compassion inside a nightmare of, you know, a descent into hell. That for me informed a lot of what Pete was supposed to be in this film. That he was a bit of a not really a reservoir, but maybe a little bit a potential oasis for Stanton to come to, and that this was maybe well, not maybe, but definitely in contrast to the family that he had burned down, literally or figuratively, literally and figuratively, and that. So the task I felt was that I needed to step up to was to just be this place that he could choose to be a safe place, a warm place, a familial place of acceptance, you know, shelter from whatever storm he was carrying. And everybody in the film is carrying a storm. You know, you're a carny, you're in the storm, you create it. And so that's what that was my kind of motivation to accomplish that for Stanton's journey. And Bradley just really, I have to say, man, you were like an open book in which anybody could pour whatever they wanted to into. It was amazing. Your presence was this. You were like soaking in whatever was around you, and so it didn't feel like, oh, I've got to make some kind of tap dance here in order to get this guy in my wavelength. No, it was there. And I don't know, the way it was staged just around a table and the warmth of the environment and all of Guillermo's attention to detail, it all was a piece where you just felt I'm in the world of this man and these people. I think it had a lot to do also, one thread through the film is that the Stanton's character encounters potential fathers as well, and also moments of choice, forks in the road. And, you know, I think Toni was the spoon and I might have been the fork. I don't know.
Well, a beautiful segue into speaking next maybe to Willem, because Clem also as this perhaps unreliable father figure in many ways, but another father figure.
Reliable.
I mean, I'm sorry, Willem. I, as Willem knows, because I've had the privilege of working with him long ago, he knows that sometimes I see him on screen playing the most loving, generous characters, and I'm still a little afraid. But in this, you're so generous, and he's seen and he's given home in this, wild nomad like home, but still, as an audience, there's this fear of manipulation or of, and it speaks so beautifully, as David was saying, Bradley, to your character and your performance, that we're afraid of you and yet we're so afraid for you throughout this movie. And so when you are with Clem, this this question of where we are and what's our grounded place comes up. And I just would love to hear, because you're so incredible, like you are in everything, but you're so incredible in this character, what that dance was like for you.
For Clem?
Yeah.
You know, it's nice to have a job in a movie. And my job was very clear. And, you know, I keep on going back to, you know, you'd hop in a car, you'd drive out of Toronto, and we'd go to the country. And particularly at night, you'd see this lit up place. And you'd walk in, and there was this carnival there. And you'd see the other actors, you know what their parts were. I had a very clear job. I mean, I ran that geek show, and I had to take care of the pick and punks, and in some of those scenes, I got to keep an eye on things. And I see this guy coming, and I kind of recognize something about him, but I'm also cautious about him. So it was all kind of laid out nice. And that was like a pleasure. And even as I walk on that set, you know, there's a parallel to it's the same kind of feeling that you walk when you walk onto a set, you know, for a movie. You feel it taking on a life, you feel it taking on a rhythm. And if you find a way to place yourself in that place to serve that world, then it kind of carries you along. And then, of course, I feel like things were kind of in motion before I even got there. So I just kind of folded in. I mean, certainly, I have a lot of stuff with Bradley and Guillermo were really had a shorthand by that time, and we're really back and forthing all the time. Guillermo was rewriting all the time. He'd always come in and play around with things. It was a good, fun environment. So there were many pleasures. And then just dealing with Clem's relationship to Stan was at the heart of it, really. Mm-hmm. And we had fun. There's, as Bradley says, there's a lot of stuff that we developed that's maybe not in the movie, but you like to think that informed the stuff that is in the movie. So we had a lot of fun getting in and out of scenes and inventing things, and it was a good time. And I, you know, also Guillermo, he's fun to entertain, you know, and there was something very beautiful about when you'd hear from across the room at the end of a scene. I like that.
Yeah. That's very good, Willem.
Maybe not the best imitation, but you get it. Ron would probably have a great one. Was it close?
Oh, it was fantastic.
Very good.
I always responded to, I like that.
That sounds delicious. Well, and also, Willem, I love hearing you speak about the generosity with which you say, as an actor, you know, you show up and it's, you know, knowing your job in the film, as we've seen from all you incredible artists in all the movies that you make, but particularly this year as we see you in this. And I don't know if you guys have seen The Card Counter yet, but Willem is so amazing in it. And I haven't seen Spider-Man, and I know you're in that, like, just the different worlds that you enter. But when we get you in completely diverse worlds in 1 year, it's amazing. But so thank you for that continually.
Thank you.
And, you know, forgive my order, since this was just left to me to get to talk to you amazing people who I so admire. But Rooney, I wanted to ask you some questions now, because you're this guide that lives in both worlds with Stanton. So as we start to turn to this whole other journey in this second film almost, you know, it's amazing to watch Molly first in this world of the carnival, and then as we get to her in something that we couldn't imagine would feel even more haunted and vulnerable for her than the place that we meet her, but in fact it is. So I'd love to first, you know, hear from you anything you want to share about finding Molly, and both, you know, in relationship to Stanton, and also just as you were developing her and creating her along with Guillermo, because she's so the, you know, the moral compass and the sort of this innocent heart of the story. So I'd love to hear what you'd like to share about that.
Yeah, this was such a unique experience for me for so many different reasons. We shot the second part of the film first, actually, and that was like pre-COVID. And for that part of the film, I was pregnant and no one knew it. So it was like, I feel like I was actually two different people making the film, because then it shut down and we came back after COVID and I had a baby, and that's when we were doing the carnival. And so that was a really weird, like out of body experience in a lot of ways, because I had a 7-week-old baby and it was like every hour my boobs were filling up with milk, and I was supposed to be playing this like innocent, you know, woman child character. And so it was such a weird out of body experience. It's hard for me to articulate it and even remember a lot of that stuff, because I was like, my mind and my body were like in two different places. But yeah, it was really helpful because me and Bradley and Guillermo got to spend a nice amount of time before we ever even started shooting, just like, you know, sitting, talking for hours a day. And yeah, we're working with Bradley and Guillermo's dynamic was really also very unique and special. And it was really cool to like step into their world every day and get to be a part of that.
And I mean, and by the way, it was the beginning of a global pandemic halfway through your and just so the vulnerability, you know, and I can only say just trying to work amidst this time, I felt everything felt raw and new and scary, and but doing something at this scale, this enormous piece, and you're pregnant and then with a newborn, I can't imagine. But I love listening to you speak about these two very different people you felt like. And by the way, in the film, you feel it. You feel her in, you know, she brings us into this completely other world, and your energy is completely alien to the other energy. It's wild. And maybe because I'm also an obsessed Todd Haynes fan and I love Carol so much, and Cate personally knows that because we're dear friends and I talked to her about it ad nauseum, but I was very excited to see the two of you in the Copa together. But also so interested just in that scene. And that's what I love so much in this movie, is how much each of you give us in a moment. It doesn't matter if it's a scene or the entire film, what you each carried in these characters, in these roles is the movie. It's so extraordinary because it's almost like we feel you, Rooney, know that danger's arrived. And it's not a girl that's jealous. It's something so much deeper. It's just, the haunting of this new female character that has arrived, and knowing that Stan's in danger and therefore you are too. That was so beautiful to watch. And even if they were fleeting moments, I don't know if you want to say anything about that. And then of course I'll ask Cate about it too.
Oh God, I don't know what I would say about that, but yeah, I mean, working with, you know, Cate makes everything easy. I mean, how could you not feel like, you know, that she has such a presence. So to be able to play that as if, oh my God, this energy has come into the room, and knowing it's something important or special, Cate makes that easy.
And Cate, I have other questions for you as well, but I don't know if you want to think about that moment, your introduction, and
you talk about that you know, the Carol thing. I mean, it's so lovely. I feel this, and you probably feel this to Toni and everyone who's worked in the theater is that often you get to work with directors again and actors again, and it doesn't always happen in film. But Guillermo carries with him, and Richard, you know this, I mean, you've worked with him so many times, he innately understands ensemble. Like he carries with him the notion that, you know, that we're all an ensemble telling a story, and that when two actors have worked together before, like as Rooney and I have, you without you even doing anything, you carry a history together that you know, Carol was an important film to certain people. So, you know, you've got a brunette and a blonde, so they're bound to sleep together, right? You know, because in the previous movie, but you know, that doesn't happen in this film. But Guillermo understands that history, and that you know, so it's great, I think, that he's making a film about circus, which is all about ensemble, and that all of Bradley's and my stuff was all about the power of the individual, you know, and the investigation of the individual mind. And I think that that's what really enters with my character, is that it's a laser focus on one person when he's, you know, been, you know, that's what he's after, is how that individual can supersede the collective, you know, and that, but so I think it's really, it's fascinating to watch in work with a filmmaker who really gets that sense of the collective, focusing on a really singular vision. But sorry, that was a very eclectic answer to
I loved it. And I it was interesting, I'd heard him speak a little bit, Guillermo speak a bit about the talented Mr. Ripley's influence visually for him on this film. And I just, you know, will never forget Meredith and the dynamic of your character in that movie. You're so amazing in, and thinking about, you know, you alongside the grifter, and how you're impacted in that story, and now seeing you beat him at his own game in this journey was so fascinating. And you know, and Bradley knows this, the sequence of you psychoanalyzing him is one of the most beautiful and vulnerable shared acting scenes I have ever seen. You know, watching how you're guiding him to the truth that, you know, each of you in first meeting Stan either try to get him to come to, as you spoke to Toni, but now you have put him in a position to make himself available to himself. And we're trusting you and yet terrified of you. And what I'm so moved by in your dynamic, the two of you together, is that we feel the manipulation, but we also feel this vulnerability. I mean, yours, Bradley, is, you know, during this psychoanalysis and your relationship to your father, and then yours later, Cate, with your vulnerability and sharing literally your scars. So I'd love to hear you speak about it, and anything you want to share, Bradley, about that dynamic and how you take turns at who's in charge and who's exposing. And it's just incredible to watch.
Well, it was so, I mean, my portion of the film was so hermetically sealed. It was quite claustrophobic. And look, and I must say, I you know, I've had the great good fortune to work with a lot of amazing directors and with incredible production designers and costume designers and art departments, but so much of one's work was done, or for me anyway, I walked onto that set and I went, oh, it's a Rorschach test. You know, it was like the internal machinations of the character were physically manifest in the environment that I was in. It was like, well, I don't need to, it's like what Willem was saying. It's like you kind of just need to show up and play your role, because you know, so much of the atmosphere and the internal life of the character was given to you. And then we had this strange little box set in which to play these psychological games that sat in relief of the life of the movie. But it was fascinating. I mean, I've done I've done a little bit of psychoanalysis. I wasn't very good at it, and I was actually on the couch, sat in the room, and I thought, I can't get on the couch, because once I get on the couch, it's going to get really messy. and so the moment when Bradley actually lay on the couch, I mean, you were amazing, Bradley. It's like suddenly the temperature dropped.
Yeah.
And this other thing happened, and you started talking about pianos, and all I had to do was to sit there and hold your head and just let it all come out of you. I didn't do anything. It was all coming out from the couch and from Bradley. So I just had to stay still and try and not get in the way of it.
I think it's what Kate's saying, and Willem also, is that, yeah, I mean, Guillermo just creates this world, and you know, I walked into this little, like you said, Kate, this like little lab we were in, and then there's Lilith. I mean, as Rooney said, it was like, there she was, and all I had to really do was stay open and trust that just staying open to her and to the world, the imaginary world that Guillermo and everybody created, that will be enough. And I think that's why so much of my memory of the movie is like real moments that happened all over the place. Like, it just was, like David talking about, like, I remember that first day and Stan coming in and you're getting up out of bed and talking about breakfast and she's running the tub, and it all just feels real. It's just like, oh, I guess this is actually really happening. And this was really Lilith's office. And I'm pretty terrified, and I'm going to lay down. You know, it was all just, and then she puts her hands on my head, and then everything. I felt the same way you're describing. The minute you put your hands on my head, which I don't even know that was even going to happen, all of a sudden I'm pouring out all this stuff. So it was really the things that you hope for as an actor that could happen in a scene with another actor, I felt, in my experience, happened just left and right and throughout this whole film.
Well, I'm next going to speak to, sorry to make it personal, but yes, the godmother of my children, Mary. Amazing Mary, because, you know, like each of you, you gave everything, as you always do, to every film you're in. I mean, if he's not created the most extraordinary ensemble possible, he's chosen a group of artists that do it each time with every cell in their body, as do you, incredible Mary. And, you know, you do it with what is seemingly a cameo, and yet one of the most devastating scenes any of us have ever seen in a film. And your purity of spirit, your love of your child, your want for this family to be together it's so pure, it's so indelible, that we'll go anywhere with you, including the choice you ultimately make. And it's a microcosm of the entire film. And so first, I just want to ask you, what was that like coming in to tell this entire story in these scenes?
Well, Laura, my sister, I only had, I think it was 3 days to prep, shoot, and then fly, because one project was ending and another was beginning. And he was kind enough to include me, even though I really had limited time to come play. But I was so honored to be any part of this beautiful ensemble and to work with Guillermo. And I think the thing that was so extraordinary about it, there was something, maybe it's just about the talent of Guillermo, the writing, but a lot of it had to do with Bradley. That in my early years, when I was first starting to be an actor, you know, I had the good fortune of studying with Sandy Meisner, and you didn't plan. What you learned was you don't plan anything. You know what you know, and then you put your attention on the other person, and they make you do what you do. And I don't know if that's ever been more true than doing the scene with Bradley, where, I mean, I knew I loved my son. I knew I lost my son, and as a mother, there is no mother who hasn't ever put her toe in that imaginary pool of pain. especially someone, in my case, who was raised by someone who lost 3 children. So that work was kind of done before I ever went there. But the work then was to put my attention on Bradley. Was he really connecting to my son? Was he, I'm not a fool, so I know there are people that do this that aren't real. What is he? And he didn't do for 1 second the part with a wink toward I'm duping her, I'm fooling her, I'm not real. He was so real that all I had to do was listen to him and respond to him. And it felt like it reminded me of why I wanted to be an actor in the first place, is that kind of relationship to my fellow actors. I loved it.
Oh, so beautiful. And I'm just curious, now that you've seen the film, you know, you lived in this story, this very specific story, and then you see it in context to how, you know, like the sins of the father, how this manipulation can impact one individual and their family in such a terrifying way. I mean, it's such an essential part of the movie in terms of who Stanton's become now. What was that like? Were you very surprised, or had you always imagined the film that way? I mean, just seeing it as a whole.
Honestly, Ted and I went to a screening of it where there were only a couple of other people in the audience. And I became so enraptured with the movie, with the beauty of it, with the colors of it, with the tone of it, with every single performance of every single one of you, and how fully everyone understood the tone of the movie. And it felt like I did too, even though I was only there for such a short time, and it was such a you know, a part of so few days. I understood it too, because that was Guillermo and I think Bradley together understood this kind of dusty, jewel-toned world that people were going to inhabit. But when I watched the movie, I just was watching the movie, and to be honest, I had moments where I forgot I was in the movie. So when my part came, I was caught off guard by it and sort of recognized the set. That's how I remembered that I was about to come on. And I think that's really a testament, because like any actor, I'm sure I have an enormous ego, but I forgot I was in the movie. It was that captivating. And it's really stuck with me. It's a movie that, you said this, Laura, but it does kind of haunt you weeks and weeks later. You have little scenes of it in your mind, and the imagery is so beautiful with the circles. There's circles throughout it, and then the alleys, you know, everything is either a sort of circle or an alley, and it is the stuff that kind of haunts you.
Oh, well, as I brought up, and you were speaking to, Kate, the idea that we get to find each other again, more so in theater, but in film periodically. I'm just really glad on this Zoom, you're side by side with the next gentleman I get to speak to, because no couple in movie history has been better than you and Richard Jenkins in Step Brothers. Yes, it's true. It's the great, it is. And it is.
I will forever be
classic of all time. Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, you're my favorite couple. Let's just be clear. I mean, I love Ted too, but so Richard, my God, Ezra is so terrifying. And yet, of course, with your grace brought to it, it was such an experience of a man's shame as opposed to an evil man or hateful man. And I've the way you carried shame, even with rage, was so devastating. But I would love to hear you speak about Ezra and how you and Guillermo spoke about it.
Well, when I first read it, the thing that just jumped out at me is, if you're someone who the only thing that matters in your life is having the person who you loved and probably died because of you forgive you, and then to have it happen, and then 30 seconds later, a minute later, realize it's all a fraud. And I just thought, I don't even know what this is. My brain can't wrap around what this is, but I certainly would like to see what this journey would be. And, and then I saw the garden that he built to her and all of that stuff that Guillermo, the thing about Guillermo that I was stunned by, really, when I first worked with him in Shape of Water, is that he knows everything about everything in his movie. There isn't anything he doesn't know about or made a decision about. I used to pick up like an ashtray on the set. He goes, "Yes, that's at my house in Toronto." We used, and my fear was that I couldn't fit into his world. That was my fear when I started working with him. But what you realize is he's totally open to what you bring. And I don't think I've ever seen that before in somebody who is so meticulous and so he controls this world so much. And that's why his movies look like Guillermo del Toro movies, because he has an aesthetic that is singular and he uses it, and it's his art. And so to have him say, "What do you bring to this? I want to see it, Richard." That to me was like, I know all of us feel the same way about him, and Kate's right. It happens in theater all the time. It doesn't happen in movies. And when it does, when you get to work with the same people again and again, it just makes it so much easier to be alive on a film. So
beautiful. What's incredible is the movie.
And Mary is my favorite wife ever.
Because you said that. Very important to establish that. But as the movie gives you these worlds that Mary, you and I were just speaking to, how it stays with you and you're so haunted by these indelible moments and worlds like yours, Willem, like yours, Cate, the places, the spaces of your home, Toni and David, like every world feels so palpably memorable. And then we get to, as you spoke to it, Richard, this maze, this garden that I would love to hear in our last, bits together. Richard, you speak about you and Bradley working together in that scene that is unbelievable. And Rooney, your arrival into it. I mean, literally the shooting of it, the emotion of it, and yes, the cold, as I brought up earlier, the elements, it's incredible. That alone is a movie I will never forget. Those minutes were so extraordinary.
Well, I think Bradley almost got frostbite, but the thing, this is something else that a point I want to make. Bradley wants you to succeed more than he does himself. Now, that's the truth. He wants you to succeed. And, so it was, I don't think any of us knew what we were going to do on that night. In fact, some of the dialogue we just did that evening, that night. When I say I haven't told you everything, that I've done. And it just got more explicit and more creepy and terrifying. And, yeah, but it just happened. That's what it ended up. And that's where it ended up going, because Bradley and Guillermo and it needed it. It just needed it. There was something hidden. We all knew that. And that tells you how much Ezra wanted to see Dory, but me, I just wanted to see Rooney Mara. That's what I wanted to see. And so I would tell him anything just to have her. And she did.
Well, Bradley and Rooney, do you guys want to share anything about that sequence?
It was very, very, very cold. It got broken up into, I don't even know how many days and days and days because of the weather. We had to shoot it like, weeks apart, days and weeks apart. And we were shooting that sort of like as the COVID crisis, basically right before lockdown.
Yeah, that was like a week before before we moved to the lie detector test, which is where we did stop filming. It was right before that. We were talking about how we're probably going to shut down.
Yeah, I just remember being in the warming tent, constantly checking the news, just waiting for what was going to happen next. So yeah, it was shot so spread out, and it was so cold. It all feels like a weird bad dream.
I mean, my experience of it is that it's a perfect example. I think that was probably the hardest scene to shoot in the whole film, just logistically, and because it really was so cold, and we were running out of a lot of things, and the snowblower was so loud, and I mean, there was all the elements were like not in our favor. And it was such a testament to, working with people that no matter how constrained it all is, and the director, that everybody can deliver in a very finite amount of time. And there really wasn't much time. And we got enough stuff together to create a scene. But it really was, that is one example of probably the hardest scene that I think it was to physically shoot and to try to get. And to what Richard was saying, we were all sort of banging our heads against the wall, like, we got to make this real, and how are we, so we're all believing it and doing it, and so we just that's the other thing. I feel like every one of us kept mining each scene we were in, and that to me is there's nothing better than being in a scene with somebody and you're putting your helmets on and you're going down into the tunnel and you're not going to come up until you've excavated as much as you can. And you don't know what's going to work or not, but it's all about the effort. And I feel like all of us really, this one was for the love of the game, period, and it's nice to be a part of a group where everybody's so clearly doing it for the love of the game.
Well, you happen to be, yes, such extraordinary actors, but also such generous actors. And so it speaks to your generosity and grace and humility that you bring that, and that you all chose to do that as a group, and just sitting on the sidelines as a beloved friend of Bradley. I loved hearing, Richard, you speak to Bradley so wanting you to be your best, and but
that was just selfish because I loved him as an actor. I just wanted
yeah true.
But the truth, and just to interrupt for 1 second, is like, going back to that scene just for a second, I mean Ezra did so many insane things that were like, and as as a character you're watching, but then I'm watching Richard just crush it, and you're just like in awe. But this, the choice, which wasn't a choice, I think it just happened, but to watch Ezra turn into an 8-year-old boy when he realizes that she's not real, is just, and then to see him turn into an 8-year-old boy and then a vicious killer in 2 seconds later. That was like just one of the many magical moments as a lover of this art to just behold. And I do remember that moment, and it is in the movie. and his voice went up, and he looked like a baby who you took their thing away from them. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, it was just like, it was perfect.
Incredible. But, just speaking to that, because I appreciated, Richard, that you said it, because I feel on a film, we're so lucky if we have this, guide and leader and maestro that's so specific. And as you said, his world is so like none other, in terms of the movies that are so emblematic of his vision and his design. But as actors, we don't always have the generosity of what you bring to it. So hearing you talk about Guillermo's openness to what you bring is so beautiful, but also to have a leader at the helm of the actors is a rare privilege that I've experienced only a couple of times. And it sounds like everyone's also speaking to that of you, Bradley, that you're there as the support and guide for all of them to find this story and to honor each character and honor each relationship and to be so present in the moment so beautifully. So it speaks to your leadership and the generosity that you all bring this movie. And you're just, it brings tears to my eyes because I just think each of you is so incredible, and you've taught me so much and given me so many gifts in all your films. But watching you all come together, my dog also wants to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Or he heard Bradley's voice. Jamal, cool it. But really, thank you for letting me just talk to you about it. Because I know, we see movies and we're seeing our friends and we think they're incredible. Periodically, we'll get to text and say, "Oh my God, you're so amazing in this." But it's rare to get to say to all of you what the movie means and what your work means. So sending you're so
pretty
much.
good, Laura.
So sweet. Well, I wish you guys such happy holidays.